Hey everybody, happy Sunday. Welcome. I'm excited to be here today to talk about deferrals. It is December 3rd, and so this is a good time to start preparing for the admissions decisions that will start coming out pretty soon. So I wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about what to expect with the decisions that will be coming out soon from the colleges that you've been applying to, and kind of what to do if you are deferred, how to handle that situation, what happens if you've been deferred, how does that all play out. So we'll talk about that tonight. We'll talk about different steps, different things that you can do if you've been deferred, and just how to handle that situation. Deferral can be a little scary, sometimes people don't really know what to think. They get kind of nervous. If they're deferred, sometimes people think being deferred means I've been rejected, right? And so that's not true. So I want to talk about tonight what to do if you've been deferred and how to approach that. And just in general, thinking about all these applications are starting to come to fruition. All the work that seniors have been doing leading up to this big moment is about to come out, right? We're about to start getting admissions decisions. So welcome. I'm really excited you guys are here tonight. My name is Gina. I'm with Advantage College Planning. If you are new here, I pop on Facebook Live every couple of weeks with some information that's really timely and relevant to whatever's going on with the college application process, if it's for seniors, or timely information to help you out if you've got younger students, because we start working with students at Advantage College Planning as early as 8th grade. So starting to think about what might be most helpful to you when your students are at different ages in this process. Our topic for tonight is on deferrals. So admissions decisions are going to start coming out pretty soon, and some students will receive a deferral from a school that they've applied to. So I wanted to get ahead of those decisions as much as we can, just to give you some tools to use and some action steps so that if your student is deferred, you know what to do when you get that notification. So as everyone's coming in, if you could just let me know where you are tuning in from. Also let me know what year your students are. The information tonight will be most relevant to students who are current seniors, or usually it's parents joining me, not students on these Facebook Lives. So what year your students are, it'll be most relevant for your seniors. But if you have younger students, definitely really helpful for you to know what to expect. Just thinking ahead for my juniors and sophomores, just knowing this is a part of the process, right? Deferrals. So yeah, just let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm based in our greater Raleigh area, Raleigh Apex area of North Carolina, but we do have offices all over the United States, some as far as California, Maine, Buffalo, Orlando. We've got you covered. So if you're tuning in from one of our other offices, definitely let me know. That's always really exciting. Oh, it's so fun to see familiar faces. Hey, everybody. Great. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. As I'm going through the information, you can also go through and put information in the chat, just like you did, letting me know where you were tuning in from. And I'll grab those questions and answer them just to help make this really helpful and informative to you as we go along. So again, we're talking about deferrals tonight. So let's start with just getting some language, getting all on the same page with language when it comes to possible decision outcomes. When students apply to college, when they get their admissions decision, there are typically 4 ways that the college can respond. The first is that the student is admitted. Yay, that's what we're all hoping for, right? And so back in the day when we were applying to college, that meant that you got the big rectangular envelope in the mail and not the smaller envelope, right? So now so many of the decisions are being released online. Students are often going to see their admissions decisions in their application portal, not from a package that they receive in the mail. So that's a really important difference that I do want to pause and talk about for a moment before we get into the other types of decisions. If you attended college in the United States and you, like me, attended college in the 90s or maybe in the 80s, maybe some of you the early 2000s, right? We went through this process at a time that was not digital like our students are doing now. So we got our admissions decisions in the mail. You might have been at school when your package arrived. You might have been at the mall. You might have been at work. You might have been wherever. But you were out and you didn't get your decision until you were home, usually, right? And you got to the mailbox. Maybe your parents got to the mailbox before you, but you were home when you opened up this news? Big envelope, small envelope, whatever. And you got to feel your feelings, and you were at home feeling those feelings. And now students are getting that information through their application portals, which I did a whole Facebook Live on those. So if you missed that, go back a couple, scroll down through our Facebook page, find that Facebook Live about application portals. That's how colleges are communicating with the students. So your student is pretty likely going to get a text message or an email from the college that they applied to or colleges they applied to saying, hey, so-and-so, we've released decisions, check your portal for an update. Makes my heart beat just saying that out loud. So then they have to go and log into the portal, and either they're going to see this like explosion of some visual something like confetti. Some schools will start playing their fight song. It's this kind of big thing. Or they're going to see a letter that usually starts off with something giving context about how competitive this year was at their institution. One or the other. And now, because students are getting this on their phone, it's instant. So they're still out and about. They might be at Target. They might be at their job. They might be at wrestling practice. And they're getting this, and then they're checking it, and they're getting this news wherever they are. And so that's just an important thing to think about and maybe talk about with your student. If you want to have a game plan about how they're going to check their decisions, I just am always really aware of students and their feelings. And I want them to be able to feel their feelings in a place that feels safe for them, right? And that might not be in the checkout line at Target. That might not be in the middle of your shift at work. It might not be in the same group with your best friends that you're shopping with. Maybe you get one decision and your best friend gets another decision from the same school, and that's complicated. So just something to think about as these decisions are coming out. Okay, so back on to the topic of possible decision outcomes. Students can be admitted, students can be denied. So it's not an option. They are not offered admission for the year. Students can be deferred, which we're going to spend a lot of time talking about tonight, or students can be offered a spot on a wait list. Wait list and defer are not the same things. So if a student is offered a spot on a wait list, that means the college is saying to your student, we'd love to have you, but we just don't have enough space for all of the students who we'd love to admit to our school. So if a spot opens up, then we will offer that to you. So you've kind of not really been admitted, but you could potentially be admitted, but you should make plans to go to another school in case a spot does not open up, which statistically, it's at some schools, it's very low chance that a spot's going to open up. At some schools, it's a little higher. We'll do a whole nother Facebook Live on waitlist. But the important thing to know is that waitlist and defer are not interchangeable. So the main thing to know right now with these 4 decisions that could come out is it's time to prepare. So your student, again, has been working really hard, submitting all these applications, working really hard in their classes, taking all of the SAT and ACT, everything they could do. But if they have applied to a school with less than a 50% acceptance rate, regardless of what their stats are, regardless of their GPA and their transcripts, you shouldn't assume anything. Don't assume that your student will be admitted. Think of it, try to take the emotion out of it and think of it as odds. If it's a 50-50 chance of a coin flip coming up heads or tails, right? You might not want to bet your house on that. So it's emotional, but try to put a little bit less emotion on assuming that any school with less than a 50% chance acceptance rate is going to be a yes. Just manage those expectations. Holistic admissions is not linear. I say this all the time. A student might have great grades and great test scores and still might not be admitted to a school. They might not be admitted, and a student who has lower GPA or a lower class rank might be admitted. These things happen all the time. And all of that just is going to come back to what is the institution's mission? What are the institutional priorities for the school that year? How selective was the major that your student was applying to compared to other majors? There's so many other factors that go into play with holistic admissions. So it's time to prepare for those expectations. So let's talk about what to do if you're deferred and what it means. Deferral does not mean waitlist. Deferral also does not mean denied. And so this is a really important piece to understand, because when students open up that message from the college and they don't see the confetti, they don't hear the fight song playing, they do see the sentence that says, this year we had a record number of applications, blah, blah, blah. A lot of times I've had students who just kind of shut down at that line, because they know, okay, I wasn't admitted, and they close the computer or they close down the app on their phone and they just say, I've been rejected. And actually they weren't. They were deferred. So even when students tell me, okay, I wasn't offered admission, I tell them, okay, let's look at the letter. Let's just see what it says. Because sometimes buried down in that letter, usually somewhere at the bottom of the first paragraph, beginning of the second paragraph, the college will say, we would like to continue to consider your application for admission. That's not being denied. That's the college saying, you still have a chance at being admitted to our school. We just need some more information. And if you don't read the full letter and you just assume that you've been denied, then you're not going to follow up on the action steps that you need to do to keep yourself in the running for that school. So, next steps. After you read the full letter, if the school says you've been deferred, or we'd like to change your application from early action to regular decision, or early decision to regular decision, anything like that, that means they just want more time to look at your application. So the next thing you're going to do is log into your applicant portal. So read through the full letter, see if they tell you what they want you to do in that letter. Sometimes they'll say, we want you to send in an updated copy of your first semester grades. That's really common. Great. You should still log into the portal. There's a school right now that many of my students apply to every year, and I've had a few of them have been deferred. And they've told me, oh yeah, I just need to send in my first semester grades. Great. Let's go into the portal. We get into the portal. Guess what? There is an optional statement that the student can submit, 150 words, about the skills that they think that they have that's going to make them a strong candidate at this college and a successful college student at their school. There was no mention of that in the letter, but it's in the portal and it's optional. But why would the student not take that opportunity, right, to give the college a little bit more context, tell them a little bit about themselves? So always check the portal as well. Pay close attention to what the college is asking for, and don't send them anything that they're not. Schools will tell you, this is what we want from you. We want a little optional essay. We want your updated first semester grades. This is where senioritis, if it's starting to creep in on your seniors, heads up, those first semester grades could make or break your admissions decision if you are deferred. So first semester grades, some students might have taken an SAT or ACT again in like October, November. Maybe they just took the December SAT for some reason. If they have an updated test score, they can certainly send that. And then sometimes students also might want to send an update about what they've been involved in during their first semester. So since I submitted my application, I've been inducted into the National Honor Society and I got a part-time job. You know, you might want to give them those updates. And so those are some things that you might want to share as well. But whatever they're telling you to do, make sure you're doing it. But don't send them anything that they're not asking for. So some students in some schools will accept what we would call a letter of continued interest, or a LOCI, LOCI, because we love acronyms. If you've joined my Facebook Lives before, you know that we love acronyms in higher ed. So a letter of continued interest. Some schools welcome these, and that's again where students can reaffirm their interest in the university and give an update about what they've been up to the first semester. Some schools explicitly say, we do not want that. We are not going to read it. We just want your first semester grades. So don't annoy them by not following directions and sending something that they explicitly say they don't want. Again, if you're working with us, this is a great thing we'll be talking with your student about it, but these are great questions to ask, right? So reach out to us, reach out to your consultant. If you have any questions, just know that we'll be talking with your student and we'll be guiding them on whether they should be submitting a letter of continued interest or not to their school. There are a lot of different reasons why students are deferred. So let's talk about those. So sometimes students are deferred because maybe the first choice major that they're applying to is super selective, and they may not be a competitive candidate for that first choice major, but they are now going to be reviewed for their second choice major. So in the deferral, now they're getting first choice is what they were considered for in early action. Now in the regular decision review, they're going to get considered for their second choice major. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes a student might have a little bit of a bumpy record and the college just wants to see, okay, things looked like they were coming back up, but let's just see how senior year is going before we make a final decision. That's where those first semester grades are going to be key. I'll be honest, some schools have a pretty high deferral rate for out-of-state students because they just receive so many applications and they just cannot get to all of the applications and make all of the decisions. So if it's a large public state institution, they might prioritize admitting their in-state students, and then any out-of-state students they just literally don't have a chance to get to by the deadline release. They just defer them to give themselves more time to get through them. So lots of different reasons why students are deferred. I wouldn't read too much into it. I just would make sure that you're following up and doing whatever the school is asking you to do. This is also a really good time to check in on the rest of your college list. So at Advantage College Planning, we work really hard to help students create what we call a balanced college list. Some schools that have a high chance of admission, some schools that have a medium chance of admission for that student, some schools that are going to have a low chance of admission. We want to have a little bit of each category. If this deferral was a bit of a surprise, right? If you thought, oh, wow, I thought this was a high chance of admission school for me, and I've been deferred, that should set off a little signal that, okay, we should look at the health of the rest of your list. Do you have any other schools that you've already been admitted to that you're excited about? Do you have any other schools on your list that you think you have a high chance of acceptance to? If not, this is a good time to go back, talk with your consultant, and maybe add a few more regular decision schools to your list if you need to help balance things out and make sure that you're going to have some really great options in the spring. That's what regular decision deadlines are great for. The deadlines for those are January, February, some are rolling. So if you need to, use those later deadlines to help put a little bit more life back into your list and make sure that you're going to have some really good options come May 1st when it's time to make a decision. So the bottom line is, I say this all the time, your students are awesome. Like, these students are awesome. I don't have one student who I work with who I'm like, oh yeah, like, I'm not really sure if this one's college ready. Like, your students are awesome. Okay. And they all have so many strengths and they have so much to offer, and they're going to be great additions to whatever campus community they join. Admissions decisions that they're receiving are not any kind of signal of their worth or their readiness for college necessarily. It comes down to just what, again, is the institutional priority. It's not personal, and it feels so personal and it hurts, and I totally understand that. So I just want to continue to remind the students that they're great. They're going to go on to do great things, and they're going to do great things at the schools who tell them, yes, we want you at our institution. Our mission aligns with who you are. Our institutional priority this year is you. Amazing, right? That's a school that you want to be going to. So make sure that your student has really good options. Rebalance out and recalibrate that college list if you need to, and just make sure that no matter what, you are doing exactly what the college is asking you to do by the deadline that they're giving. That is key. And then best of luck, and your student will end up where they're meant to be, and it'll be good all the way around. So I want to open this up for questions. If you have any questions about deferral or just kind of admissions at this time of year in general, what to expect, I will be back in 2024 with a whole host of other topics, thinking really starting to focus more back on the juniors and sophomores and getting ready for their college search. But if you do have any questions, definitely feel free to add them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them and give you as much information as would be helpful for you during this exciting but sometimes nerve-wracking time for students and families. Excited to see so many familiar faces. It's always so great. Lots of people here from the Raleigh area. Great. So what percentage of deferred students get admitted later? Ooh, Wendy, that's a really great question. Great question. So that is going to definitely vary from school to school. There isn't necessarily one set percentage number. I'd say, again, it's going to come back to the institutional priorities of that school, as well as the student and their individual strengths. So institutional priorities, that is, at the beginning of the admission cycle, the board of governors and the administrators, kind of the higher ups at the university, deans of students and presidents, essentially give admissions their marching orders. And they say, all right, this is what we're prioritizing this year. Looking at the big picture, we are growing this new program, or we really want to increase our geographic diversity and we want to get students from these different states, or maybe a certain athletics team needs a certain number of players because they graduated a lot of players last year, right? All of that plays into institutional priorities. And so that's why when a student applies, we want to make sure they're putting their best foot forward, but we also have to understand that a student who meets an institutional priority, maybe they play a certain sport or they're applying to a certain major, they're coming from a certain state, that might have an impact on their decision in a way that's different than a student who didn't meet that institutional priority. So that's why it's impossible to say exactly what the percentage is across all the different universities. When is the deadline for submitting financial aid forms? Okay, great question. So this is not related to being deferred, but financial aid. So the FAFSA just opened on December 1st. So that was today's Sunday, Friday. So the FAFSA opened on Friday. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and that just opened. So usually schools, if you're applying early decision, then schools want to have your financial aid information usually by about mid-November on a normal year, just so they can get you that financial information once they give you a decision. However, because this year was an odd year and FAFSA is opening so much later, it usually opens October 1st, schools have had to push back their financial aid priority dates. So I would say now that the FAFSA is open, submit as soon as possible. Most schools will have a financial aid priority date in about mid-January to mid-February. But again, if you're applying early decision at any school with that binding agreement, and you should be getting an admissions decision from them shortly, if you're hoping to receive any financial aid, I would go ahead and get that submitted as soon as possible. The CSS profile is an additional financial aid form that some schools require, not all schools, like the FAFSA. And that opened on October 1st. So for students who applied with early action and early decision deadlines, the CSS profile due date is usually somewhere between November 15th and early January. For regular decision students, it's about mid to January to mid-February, usually. But the college's websites, their financial aid page, will have those specific deadlines. In my experience, have I seen some of my students get approval after deferral? Absolutely, yes. So that's why it's so important that they follow up and they do whatever it is the school is asking. So I've had students who have been deferred and then admitted. I had a student last year who was deferred, she had a first choice major and a second choice major. Her first choice major was highly selective. Really, tough to get into, and then a little bit less selective of a second choice major, but that she was still happy with. She was deferred. So we sent in everything that this school asked for. She had amazing first semester grades. She couldn't have done anything different. She ended up getting into her first choice major, which was awesome. And she's at that school now. And so that was really cool. I've also had students who have been deferred and have ended up being waitlisted. So the school said, we'd like to give you a space. We just don't have room. Do you want to take a spot in line? And then, if something opens up, they can get in. I've had students who have gotten off the wait list and students who have not gotten off the wait list. And then I have had students who were deferred and then denied. So it really could go any way. But if the bottom line is, if the student wants to keep that opportunity open at that school, they should follow those next steps. I've also had students, though, who got a bunch of admissions decisions, were really excited about a bunch of them. And then maybe one school they got deferred, and they were like, I mean, I've already got these other options over here that I'm super excited about. This one that deferred me was kind of like it's fine, but I'm not super excited. And they ended up just not continuing the process because it wasn't a school that they were all that excited about after they had these other kind of options, shinier options for them to pick from. So it really can go either way. Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, follow the steps, guys. Check the portals, check the emails. And if they do get a letter that isn't the one with the big exploding confetti and the marching band, just please go back and read through, either have them read through it with your consultant or read through it with them, and just make sure they're not missing anything, because they might be deferred and not denied and they just don't know the difference. So we'll be talking with our students about this as well. But of course, we always appreciate your help. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you all have a great start to your week. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all back here in the new year. Thanks so much. Have a great night. Bye.